So here we have a simple to-do list app where we are getting some to-dos in our state and mapping over it to show them in a list. Now, as you can see, like we are getting some initial to-dos from this function, which like gives us some 50 items as default. So whenever I start application, like if I reload, you will see 50 items beforehand. Now everything looks fine, and if I add something, it is adding it, so it works pretty like expected. But there is a problem with this code. It is not as efficient as you think. The problem is here, like how we are initializing the initial state of the to dos, because we are calling it here. Let me show you what is happening. So what I did is I wrote a running time a variable which is like and set it to 1, and then every time this function calls, we log the running time and increment it. Now if I show you the console, okay, so let me clear the console and refresh the page. Okay, so this function says I ran 1 times because running time was 1, and we called it at initial render, right? Because it is an initial state and it will be called at initial render. So till now it is working fine. We expect it to run 1 time, so it is running 1 time. Now if I type something in this input box, let's see what happens. So you see, whenever I'm typing something, the state updates, this text state updates, and the whole component re-renders. And when a component re-renders, we are calling it this way, so this function gets called every time, though it will not change our state. Like this will be ignored after initial render, because useState only takes in the account of this initial value only at the initial render, and after that it ignores it. But because we are calling it here, it will be called every time. So that's why whenever I type something, it is running every time. So imagine this is a massive computation, something you are doing for to get your initial state, then this will be a waste of time, right? So this code is really inefficient. Now there is a simple way to fix it, and even the new React documentation points it out. Actually this code is from there. So what you need to do is, just instead of calling it, you just pass the function, or either you can pass it as a callback like this and call it inside your callback. But the simplest thing is just pass the function itself. So what happens now is that useState decides when to call it, right? We are not calling it. So what happens, so if I clear the console and again reload, so if I clear the console and reload this, okay, so I ran 1 times, which is expected, which we do expect. Okay, now if I type anything here, you can see it is not rendering again. It is, the function is not being called again, because the calling part is now handled over to useState, and it takes the callback or a function as a parameter, and it calls at the initial render only and not after that. So hey, if you're watching this on Instagram, then head over to my YouTube. I may be posting some React interview questions there. I already posted one which you might like. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then there will be a link in the description where you can go to get this code and test it out yourself. So now please follow or subscribe to never miss out any further video I put on.